The following live-streamed program is made possible by Atlanta Video Network, making your streams come true. Live from BQE Restaurant and Lounge in the heart of Atlanta's historic Martin Luther King District, it's Politics and Perspective as Newsmakers Journal Live presents its 11th season in the high-stakes arena of Atlanta politics. And now, here's your host, 8-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, Maynard Eaton.
That was a great interview. But now I want to go to the other side of the aisle. This gentleman I consider a friend, although we rarely agree on politics. Seriously speaking, Shelley Wynter has become, over the past year and a half, the most popular black Republican talk show host in the metro Atlanta area.
That's right.
Sadly to say, his show is ending this week. Shelley Wynter, welcome to Newsmakers Live again. You've been here before.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you to you and Jim for having me.
But you've grown in grace since your last appearance over a year or so ago. You've become that guy on on Republican radio talking about black issues.
Yeah, talking about black issues, talking about cultural issues, talking about white issues, just talking about issues in general. It's kind of when you said the only black Republican in Metro Atlanta on talk radio. It's kind of interesting because it's like, you know, it's kind of easy. There's nobody there, you know what I mean? So, but it is true. Since Herman Cain, since Shannon Burke ran Herman Cain off of SB, I am the only one.
Are you talking to many black folks, though? Are there many black Republicans, or are you just talking to the other races?
I'm talking to everybody. We have a good portion of black conservatives. They call in every day. We have a good number of African Americans who are liberal, who listen, who don't agree with what I say, but enjoy the show. Because we do, I mean, it's a talk show for men 25-54. We have women listening, but it's entertaining more so than anything else. We try and, you know, my job in the morning is to entertain you and make you think at the same time. So we'll talk about serious issues, we'll have fun, we'll cut up, we'll have a great time laughing as men that are sitting in a bar, at the bar, men sitting on a golf course, men sitting on a work site, just as men sitting around talking smack to each other. That's what we do every morning also. But involved inside of that is political talk, commentary, and things like that. And I set out to do that on purpose because I learned from my days at AM talk radio, WAOK, which kind of gave me my start. I learned that there's a number of people don't want to be serious all the time. They don't have to be serious for 3 hours. They want to have fun. They want a mixture. And that's really what we try and do every morning. I have young men like Chandler here. Chandler Crump's 13 years old. He listens every morning. And I've got 80-year-old retired grannies in South Georgia who listen every morning. So it's a wide mix.
Isn't the operative word infotainment?
And it's radio. It's radio the way talk radio was designed to be. Informative and entertaining. We crack jokes, we make fun of each other, they make fun of me, I make fun of them. I mean, it's a team effort, and it's what FM talk radio is supposed to be. It's my understanding is what talk radio is. I'm a talk radio fan. I don't want to listen to what I hate when I listen to other talk radio stations. No, I'm not saying any names, I'm not dogging anybody, I'm just talking in general.
Well, that's rare.
I we'll get to that, I guess, at some point. But what I hate is when someone goes on a radio and they'll say, a transgender athlete ran in a women's race and they won. What do you think about that? And then they take callers for the next 3 hours. I think that's just robbing a paycheck every week.
Because there's no opinion expressed. There's no insight offered.
There's no insight offered, but there's what is that? Everybody can read the story on their own. They all have an opinion. I understand reaching out to the callers, but there's nothing that you've made. Most people that read that story will have an opinion one way or the other. Everyone, pretty much 90% of everyone's going to say, wow, that's not fair. Now, whether they agree or disagree or how unfair it is, they're all going to say the same thing. That's unfair. What makes it compelling is when you have an opinion on it and you drill down what I call the onion, and you start at the outer edge of the onion, and by the time the show is over, you're now down to the core of the onion on what that story is really about.
Do you engage or do you provoke?
I engage. Everything I say on the radio, I believe 100%. I've never said anything on the radio just to provoke people. I've never done that. I did that in my early days on AM talk, and I quickly, within a week, found out, no, you can't do that because you're going to tie yourself up in that lie that you told last week. If you don't believe,
and you don't remember it either.
Well, you don't remember. If you're just saying things to provoke people to get angry or to react, You're not going to remember what you said day to day. If you truly believe and say every single morning what you truly believe and what your opinion is on a particular subject, which is what I do, then you're always true to your opinion because it's your opinion.
But Shelley, people do get angry at some of the things you said.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's on them. That's not on me. I didn't say it to get them angry. They got angry on their own. I can't control that.
Now, how influential are you think? Have you changed many minds? Have you converted many black folks or even other races to the Republican side of the fence?
I can't look at the numbers because there's no real numbers to look at. No one's ever told me this. I've had a couple callers who've called in and said, I see things differently. One of the most amazing things, I've had many callers, especially since we've been going off the air, I've had many Caucasian callers who are conservative who told me they started to look at race relations differently because of me. And I think that's just as important as converting African Americans to the Republican thing. My takes on police shootings, as opposed to looking at them as a broad stroke, as they're all the same. I have picked and chose which ones I think are heinous, which ones should be looked at differently, and that has provoked a lot of pushback on the show, because conservatives by definition are law and order supporters. But that is probably some of my most heated conversations on my show, is when I've taken a position that's been opposed to in a police shooting, in a particular police shooting, because I don't broad stroke them. And so that's been some of the more heated shows that we've had, and I think more entertaining shows. And it's from that I think
Does the heat make it entertaining, or does the subject matter make it entertaining?
The subject matter makes it entertaining because it's bold for an African American to go on AM African American talk, a historical station like 1380, and be a conservative during the Bush era. That's bold. It's bolder yet to go on a majority white conservative station and say, hey, I think the cop was wrong on this. That's even as bold.
And you've done that.
And I've done that.
And you survived.
And I survived. And I think what I've realized in doing this show for a year and a half is that everybody, white, black, old, young, Jew, Gentile, whatever, every single person respects an opinion if it's delivered logically and strongly, whether they agree or disagree. If you respect the person, you don't have to respect necessarily the person delivering it, but if your opinion is delivered with logic and backup, and you're not just spouting off at the mouth, I think people recognize that and they're able to engage you now back and forth.
You spend a lot of time preparing for your show. I've heard you talk about it. You really eat and divulge and digest the news and then spit it out as you see fit for your show. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, when your friend Tommy Bottoms is here, when you're friends with Tommy Bottoms, I've been doing that for years, even when I'm not on the radio. My wife's here. God bless her. Thank you for putting up with me, baby. She knows I watch the news whether I'm on the radio or not. I'm watching CNN, Fox News, MSNBC all night long. I'm talking to myself. I go out and smoke a cigarette in the garage. I'm talking to myself like I'm on the radio. So it's just, this is it.
You talk to yourself like you're on the radio.
Absolutely.
So the show you do in the mornings, I've seen, you do that to the air.
I've had conversations, I've had rants on the radio that I said to myself 4 months ago, but it just came up in the news now for me to be able to bring back. I mean, I'm an only child, so I've always been a guy that had to entertain himself. Yeah. So talking to myself, answering myself, I mean, I do that all the time.
How'd you get into radio? What intrigued you about radio? Is it a lack of a TV face, or?
No, yeah, that's part of it. That's definitely part of it.
You know I'm joking.
No, that's definitely part of it. Also, I used to listen to 1380 all the time. Shout out to Reggie Rouse, who was the first person who saw that I could be good at this. I'd never even thought of it.
Really?
As a job, no. I used to call into AOK all the time, and then one day, we actually went to school together, but beyond that, he called me up. They were doing a community program in the evenings from 6 to 7, I think, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. From 6 to 7, they brought someone from the community to do an hour show. And they brought me in to do an hour show on Wednesdays, and I did that for like 3 months. And I didn't know, I was just talking on the radio, just doing what I normally do. I walk down the street talking about news stories. I mean, it's just doing what I naturally did. And then Cos Carson was on the air at the time. And he left the radio station, and Reggie Rouse told me to sit at 2 o'clock and stay there until I tell you to leave. And that's how I found out I was good. Actually, he's the one that told me I could do this. Yeah, he's the one that told me. So I'll always be indebted to Reggie, because I never thought of doing talk radio as a job until he told me I was good at it.
Do you and others of your ilk think yourselves as journalists? You and Rashad not think yourselves as journalists or talk show?
I'm a pundit. I give my opinion on issues of the day. I'm not a journalist. I don't write down the middle like journalists are supposed to do.
Right.
I don't do that.
Except on Fox.
Right. Yeah. Or CNN or MSNBC or the AJC. But I don't do that. I take a position. I see a story. I take a position, and that's my position. And I'm able to defend my position. So no, I would never consider myself a journalist. Although I would love to speak in front of the Atlanta Black Journalists Association. That is a dream of mine.
Well, you've engaged my classes, my journalism students that with the same sort of words, and they've been transfixed by you because you come across differently. You have a different approach to looking at the news. Your point of view. I worry that young students, young journalists, will come into this business as journalists with a point of view and not giving the facts.
I think social media has, I think the media landscape has changed to the point where I don't think there's such a thing as journalism anymore. I think there are no, what I mean by that, I don't mean that as a knock on journalism. I think the landscape has changed such that journalism, that people aren't looking for the true journalistic stories anymore. They're looking for a point of view. I think when you have Facebook and you have social media, you have all these outlets, everyone by definition has a voice now. And so because everyone has a voice...
But that doesn't make it so. It doesn't make it true. It just makes it opinion.
What makes anything true? Tell me, Doc.
Facts.
Well, what facts? Hold on. Let's follow this line of thinking.
Truth is a stubborn fact, says Maya Angelou.
Right.
Truth is a stubborn fact.
But truth is also very relative. So let me give you a perfect example. CNN is a journalistic brand of a news station. For 2 years, they basically told me something that was going to happen, that when it happened, it never happened. So is that a fact? Because when they were telling it to me, it was told as a fact that this was.
You know, the facts where they were investigating him, they didn't tell you what
they absolutely did. They absolutely did tell us that when they found a report came down that he was going to go to jail. This was
You're talking about the president.
I'm talking about the president. I'm talking about the Mueller report. CNN, Camarati in the morning. I'm not talking about Cooper, Lemon, and Cuomo. Those guys are opinion hosts in the evening. They're opinion guys. I'm talking about Camarati. I'm talking about Brooke Baldwin, who I love, who's a friend of mine. I'm talking about the afternoon people, the journalists on MSNBC and CNN told us for a fact for 2 years something was going down that they knew wasn't going. I don't know if they knew. I can't say that, but it was not a fact. So when you tell me
something did go down, we just don't know what it was.
Well,
I mean, the Mueller report has not been released. I mean, they're hiding it. All we have is a synopsis, a summary. I'm not going to argue with you because this is what you do. But I'm telling you, I mean, how can you say
400 pages? 400 pages. The entire report came out. 95 of it is unredacted. How can you say it's not a full report? 95% of it is unredacted. It's sitting right there online. You can go pull it up right now and read 400 pages.
Let's go back to the question.
But again, to your point about facts, that is a fact. That's so now you're blurring. People are blurring what they determine as facts. Even the journalists who call themselves journalists say, I'm talking the facts, but they're really talking their opinion. That's all my point.
So they're no different than what you do, is what you're saying.
Not at all. At least I'm admitting what I am. I'm a pundit. I'm free to admit that I have an opinion, and that's what I'm doing.
You're a good linguist. And I like it. And speaking of social media, you engage regularly and vehemently on Facebook. Is that another channel for you?
Yes.
Because you're there a lot.
That came from, I grew up in Harlem, New York. And for those of you from New York, I would say this. I don't care if you're from New York. If you're a young man growing up in any time frame in our history, if you're young, white, black, age, I don't care what age you are, but if you're a young man, you grew up playing in dozens. You grew up talking and snapping on each other. And I grew up in that environment. I grew up where you came out to play. If your pants were 1/2 a centimeter higher than they're supposed to be, the rest of the day you had on high waters, and you would not escape that. So I grew up in an element where you had to be quick-witted, you had to be smart, you had to be quick with your tongue, and that trained me. And so now in politics with Facebook, what I like to do is I like to go after the people that don't have an argument.
You pick them apart too.
Right, well, because they call names, they shout you down, they just tell you that they think you're something or the other, or you're not this, you're not that, or whatever. Give me, all kinds of stupid stuff, and you're talking about politics or an issue or a culture or whatever. And so that's the ones I like to go after, because I don't argue with people, and this is a secret. on social media and radio too, I don't argue with someone that disagrees with me for that person. A lot of people engage me because I'm arguing with Shelley Wynter on social media.
True. That's true.
And a lot of that is there. But I'm not arguing with you because you're Joe Blow. I'm arguing with you because of the tens of hundreds of people watching. Those are the people I'm convincing. Because the people reading that thread and me go back and forth.
And it's a thread to you and Joe Johnson. You have a daily thread of back and forth.
But there's a bunch. If you look,
it's verbal combat sometimes.
And if you look at that thread, there's about 100 people in that email thread that you're talking about. And we've been doing this since August 2015. There's a number of people on that email thread that go back and forth with who they agree with on a daily basis also. And so I'm not arguing with, in this particular case, Joe per se. I'm arguing to put my opinion, put forth my opinion, for the people that don't chime in, because there's only about 4 of us that chime in on an email thread that's 100 plus people. So when I debate someone on my show,
I watch it every day. I don't necessarily chime in.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You don't. But like when I debate someone on my show, or I have someone that calls in that disagrees with me, I'm not debating that person for the sake of debating that one individual. I'm debating that person for the sake of everyone listening, so they can hear both sides of an issue and take from it what they want.
Shelley, I have some good friends who are Republicans. When we worked together, Dr. Deborah Honeycutt, Leo Smith,
Class Act,
Corey Ruth,
Michael Murphy,
Michael Murphy, who's here with you tonight, and others. How do you rank with them? Are you more right wing than perhaps they are?
No, actually, with the exception of Mike and Dr. Honeycutt and several others, I'm technically not a real Republican because I voted for Obama twice. To many hardcore conservatives in the state, they still don't like me because I voted for Obama twice. That's like the kiss of death to hard-right conservatives. To a number of conservatives in the state, black and white, I'm the perfect conservative because I'm willing to challenge the orthodoxy of the party when necessary.
And that helps you on the radio? That helped you get ratings? I mean, was it difficult for you to stay there and survive? Black Voice, it may have been a conservative point of view, but you were still an outlander.
My wife and I went to see the Kimmer. He does a comedy show with Jim Gossett. They did it up in Roswell, and the wife and I were invited to meet some friends of friends, and we went up there, and he gave one of the most beautiful speeches. This is coming from a guy that makes jokes and makes fun of people every day, and he said himself that as a black conservative in the city of Atlanta, to stay on the radio a year and a half and build the kind of following he has tells you something of the human being he is. And that's what I go with.
That's a nice compliment.
Yeah, a very nice compliment, because at the end of the day, like I said, people can disagree with you. They can yell at you. They can, I have people that curse me out on Facebook. I had a guy, I won't mention his name, literally, and Terica will support this. I haven't talked to him literally in 9 months. This guy, I used to show up to his nonprofit down at the Juvenile Justice Center. I used to show up on my own time and play chess with his kids. This is before I was on the radio. He knew I was a Republican. He knew I loved Trump. I got on the radio, and he started dogging me on my social media. I mean, calling me names and everything. So I just took a step back. I know you're mad, whatever. I talked to him tonight, and we picked up right where we left off. Hey, can you help me? I need, no problem. And so at the end of the day, like I said to Reverend Durley, one of the things is I love the community. I love black people. And I absolutely want to see the conditions in the black community change. And I think the best way for them to change is to embrace conservatism. I think the best way for them to change in the black community, the fastest way for them to change, is to embrace the other side of a two-sided system.
You've often said that blacks are generally, black homeowners are generally conservative in their principles anyway.
Absolutely.
How many of those in the Atlanta area are Republicans, black Republicans are?
There's, I was told by a political consultant that there are 17,000 registered black Republicans in the state of Georgia. That means that on their voter in the state, 17,000. I was told that their profile.
That ain't much.
Well, no, it's not much, but it's 17,000. If I would have told you how many do you think, you would never have said 17,000. I bet you. Now, when you look at that number, that's 17,000 listed as a Republican. That's African American. You've got about 25 to 30,000 that are. I mean, you got about 120 to 110,000. Don't quote me on that. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But it's in the hundreds of thousands that are listed as swing voters. In other words, they voted for Republicans and they voted for Democrats. And then so at the end of the day, all I ask people to do is if you live in an area, if you live in the city of Atlanta and your grandmother's owned the same house on Dill Avenue, let's use that because I was in the news today, on Dill Avenue, she's owned the same house on Dill Avenue for the last 40 years. There's no way in hell, logically speaking, that woman should be voting for anybody black or Democrat any time. Because those are the very same people that for the last 30 years destroyed Dill Avenue and turned it into a drug bazaar. So why would you continue to vote for those people?
Well, so who's turned into a gentrified area now?
Who runs it? Who's running it now?
A black city council?
Right. So who's running it? You're asking me a question of who's gentrifying the city of Atlanta. Well, the only answer to that is who's running it. Who has been running it? Who allowed a Boston developer?
Dill Avenue was a drug den for a while.
Right, but
now it's a thriving neighborhood.
And why is it thriving now and it wasn't then? Why is it thriving now and it wasn't then? You mean to tell me the same police couldn't roust up the same people standing on the corner that they're rousting now then for grandma? But you could do it now for a young 20-year-old that just graduated from Emory with a doctorate? You could roust the cops for her, but you can't roust them for them. But if I'm a black Republican, but I'm the coon and Uncle Tom, but I'm spitting to you and telling you exactly what's going on in front of your face, but I'm a sellout. You watch a bunch of people move into your neighborhoods. People are moving into the West End right now, and the cops will show up in 30 seconds for someone walking down the street that they don't recognize. You had ladies raped and pillaged on West End for 20 years, and the cops wouldn't show up for an hour. And now all of a sudden they're showing up? This is all black run, all Democrat run. I'm not hating on my people, I'm just telling you the facts. A Boston developer is developing Pine Street, not Pine Street, Boulevard right there on Westview. A Boston developer, they don't even live here. They don't even know who they are.
And you could walk down Boulevard 10 years ago.
I used to cop on Boulevard. I tell you how bad it was on Boulevard. I mean, real talk. I mean, seriously. So you can't tell me that somehow the Republicans are so evil and so bad and this is happening all over the country. It's happening in Harlem. I go to visit my mom in Esplanade. I see people getting off the train in Harlem right now in groups of 10, 15 white guys at 2 o'clock in the morning, drunk, and no one's touching them. My grandmother couldn't go to church on a Sunday morning without clutching her bag. Literally, she had to get on a bus to go 10 blocks because she couldn't walk the 10 blocks because she would have got mugged. And this is happening all over the country, but somehow, some way, I'm supposed to be convinced that it's the Republicans are the worst thing ever? That's crazy.
Well, are you convinced that President Trump is doing this? I mean, and why do you...
President Trump just came 2 years ago. These problems long predated President Trump.
But why do you explain it? Why do you extol the virtue of President Trump?
Because he's not them.
And how many...
I just answered that. Because he's not them.
He's not them.
He's not them. The people I just talked about, he's not them. He's not one of them. He's not one of the people that let whole inner cities go down. You just destroyed projects on the west side.
He's not back up. He's not. What is he doing for black folks?
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
Before I blame a guy that's only been there 2 years, what he's done for or against black people for 2 years as the President of the United States that doesn't write legislation, I first have to put the blame of everything that's going on for the last 30 years at the foot of the people that are being elected. It is whataboutism in this case. So before I jump to him and say, oh, Mr. Trump, what are you doing for black people? I first got to go over here and say, hey, the Lewises, the Elijah Cummings, the people that the Charlie Rangels, what have you done for black people for the last 30 years? I've got to ask that fundamental question before I go over here and ask him what he's done for us. If I don't, I'm totally lying to myself. You drop projects that had bad schools, no jobs, and everything. Instead of fixing those problems in the west side, the south side, the east side, instead of fixing, East Lake was rebuilt. Instead of doing that all over the city of Atlanta, you instead dropped the projects, dispersed the people south and west and north, and then built $500,000 condos. And now everyone's talking about what a great city the city of Atlanta is. That is maddening to me. That is just madness to me. And that was all black, it was all Democrat, done at the hands of businesses that use them as overseers in a plantation called the city of Atlanta. And that's the truth.
Are you running for office next?
No, I will back, I'll tell you who I will back. I'll back people like Felicia Moore, because she's been true. Forget my politics, forget the side of the fence I'm on. I know people who are true to the people of Atlanta from day one. When she was up there in Marietta, she was fixing city parks for whoever lived up there. I went up there for one time. They had a park that had needles in it. and she had a cleanup of the park as a city council member in a district, mind you, in an area, not a district, not her district, but in an area within her district that was largely Hispanic, poor Hispanics and blacks. They didn't vote. She wasn't doing it for votes. She was cleaning up a park so people had a place to play. And we were up there, we were helping her. This is when she was first running for re-election, I believe. Right. And I'll never forget that. I was like, man, she really cares. Because she does this all the time, and she's been doing it all the time. So someone like Felicia Moore, I'll be right there, Johnny, on the spot for her. There's a lot of people I like.
You like Joe Carn, you talk about this morning.
I like Joe Carn very well. He's been doing this 20 years.
He cannot be Gordon Joyner.
Who says? Who's Gordon Joyner, first of all?
He was a former Fulton County Commissioner.
How many years ago?
10 years ago.
How many years ago?
10 years ago.
10 years ago, he's a former Fulton County Commissioner.
But he's served in Washington since then. What are you talking about?
I'm saying, but why? Why would I hire a septuagenarian when I've got these young people who've been putting in the work all this time? Why would I hire anybody over 50 years old to run for Fulton County Commissioner? Not saying that age matters. I'm just making a point.
You made that point on the radio today. Age does matter to you.
No, it does matter to me because I got these young people starving for opportunity who put in the work. You know, this kid was a Fulton County Solicitor General.
He's not a kid now. He's not a kid.
What I'm saying, he's a kid compared to the name you mentioned. I wasn't going to mention this race, but you wanted to, so I'll tell you why I like him. I like these young people with new ideas. I like these guys. College Park has been largely ignored in the South.
You don't have any new ideas?
I wouldn't run for office. I have too many skeletons.
Just because you have gray hair don't mean you can't have new ideas.
I can't run for office. I'm very knowledgeable of who I am, who I used to be, and the problems that I've had.
Understand.
I'm not going to run for office. I mean, all someone has to do is go pull my social, and I'm done.
You're not alone.
So I'm not running for office, but I can talk about it, and I can help whoever wants to run. I can help them for free. And I like Joe Carn. He's young. He's aggressive. He's always been there. He's been on the ground level. Because you were a Fulton County Commissioner and then you went to D.C., I don't see what
He's a top-flight attorney. I
definitely don't want an attorney. I definitely don't want any more attorneys. I've had my fill with attorneys.
What is what the vote?
Attorney just robbed a city of Atlanta blind. Has got the FBI breathing down his throat. I don't want attorneys.
With a businessman.
I want business.
Along with a businessman.
I want businessmen.
Businessmen are the ones that set up the deal.
I like the businessmen. I like that they can. A businessman sees a problem and fixes it. I cheat. I cheat at cards. Don't you cheat at spades? I tap my partner. There's cheating and then there's robbing. They're two different things. If you and I are playing cards and I cheat, I kick my partner, I do signals, I got a good hand, all that stuff, that's cheating. There's another thing. No, there's another thing where I just take your money off the table and say it's mine. That's we don't want that.
You were at the GOP convention recently, and David Schaefer is the new GOP chairman. Mm-hmm. What do you think of it? Tell me about David Schaefer and why do you like him?
I liked him because there were only three choices. Well, really four, but there were really three main choices. Scott Johnson is an activist who the party needs an activist, but Scott Johnson is not fiery. Right now in this day and age,
David Schaefer's not fiery.
Well, I'm getting to that. I'm answering the question. There's three choices. Scott wasn't just fiery. I thought David Schaefer was the best of the three candidates who chose to run. I think John Watson did a wonderful job. I think the party activists didn't like John Watson because there were so many seats lost, but it had nothing to do with who the party chair was.
John Watson discontinued minority outreach. Do you like that too?
He didn't see. So okay, let me use a perfect example. Let's just.
What he did?
No, hold on. Let me turn around and go back to the place we were at before, right? You said journalists have facts. That was a fact. Now let me preach to you what I was saying to Maynard earlier, so you guys understand what I'm talking about. That is a fact. John Watson, as chair of the Republican statewide GOP party, discontinued minority outreach. Do you know why he did it? Here's another fact. So two facts can operate at the same time. It depends on what opinion you want to come with. So even though you might say you're a journalist, when you wrote that story or write a story saying John Watson discontinued minority outreach, the Republicans proved to be racist, that's a factual.
No, I
didn't say you did. A journalist can write that story saying they have the facts. The truth of the matter is, there's another truth to there. The truth of the matter is he discontinued minority outreach to go after everyone equally. So you have a party that's shrinking well, here it is. You have a party that's shrinking. You have a party that's largely white, older men. and it's shrinking. So his outreach strategy was, I'm not going to pre-select minorities because my minority outreach, previous to him taking it away, was really just meant black people. What he saw as minority outreach.
Blacks and Latins now.
No, well, I'm trying to answer your question. What he saw as minority outreach, and what you raised as an issue when you said he discontinued minority outreach, was about black people. So when he brought it back, he didn't bring it back as minority outreach. He brought it back as a big tent. We're going to go after every voter, no matter if it's a woman, Hispanic, black, and we're going to talk to them the same way.
That sounds like a defense, not necessarily.
No, it sounds like good marketing. Good marketing says if I've got a restaurant, then anybody.
How are you marketing then to let?
I've got a restaurant. BQE restaurant. I can do marketing one of two ways. I can target every black church to come here for brunch afterwards, or I can target every church in the metropolitan area. I can do one of two things. I can build my business on the backs of everyone that can eat food and buy a drink, or I can build my party or build my restaurant on the backs of just a certain select group of people. And I'm not saying that happens here. I'm just using this as an example. The party decided to effectively go after every single voter individually as a voter where they stand on the issues they appreciate and support. So you go into a Latina's house and you talk about health care, job creation, taxes. You go into the old white guy's house, you talk about retirement, Medicaid, prescription savings, and you talk to people about the issues that are important to them where they are. You don't self-select and say, hey, I'm going to reach black people where there's, as I told you, 17,000 registered black supporters. Well, I can reach them in an email. I don't need to have a whole department for that.
Ground in the state. Aren't you in a? This is about to become a blue state, is it not?
It could. I've said this to Republican audiences. It could become a blue state next election cycle. We could skip purple and go to completely blue. I think Brian Kemp was the right governor, the right candidate to run against. Well, I'm talking politics here. He was the right candidate to run against.
He was right to sign that abortion bill too?
I think for the people that supported him, he won, right? He did win, right? So the people that supported
barely. Well, some suggest, you know this. Some say he stole it.
Well, you say that every time he lost. You said that when Gore lost. You said that every election, every time a Republican wins, he cheated. Every single time. Trump cheated until you found out your own guys cheated. Like the first day Trump won in November 7th, everyone said he cheated with the Russians. Then you found out that your own side cheated and knocked Sanders out the box. So every time a Republican wins any election, they cheated. So let's not have that argument. That's a waste of time in that argument. But what I'm saying is Kemp was a right candidate to run against an Abrams because that's what kept the state red. We need a candidate. We need in order to win statewide, the Republican Party has to make a decision if they're going to be moderates or they're going to be hard rights. If they become too moderate, they're going to turn off the base of the party. If they become too far right, they're not going to welcome in.
Too far right? I mean, how much further right could you go than he was in doing his campaign?
Oh, I don't think he went that far. I don't think he went that far right.
His campaign bust things that
he didn't have a campaign.
You call him a moderate?
I think he ran a moderate race. What was outlandish to you, far right? No, tell me an example, because you made that statement. You must have the facts.
But he did have a campaign bus with a sign on all the states. It was outlandish.
What was on the bus?
I don't remember.
Illegal immigration and gangs. That's outlandish? To fight illegal immigration and gangs?
And now we got him signing a thing for abortion.
Right, that's outlandish. It's not outlandish to the millions of. But hold on. You're right. But there's a number of There's a number of women who went down to the Capitol every single day during the session and argued for abortion. They argued for that law. So is he supposed to tell them they voted for him? That's what elections are about. The pro-life movement in the state of Georgia voted for Brian Kemp. He delivered to them what he said he would. Now you can make an argument with them, you can make an argument with the issue, but you can't make an argument with a politician who runs on a platform, wins, and then delivers that platform to his voters.
What about the issue itself? I mean, how do you see that? How's your mother or your wife? How do you?
I'm not a woman. My thing is
Well, you're a pundit.
I'm a pundit. My thing on that, my punditry on that says it's a life in that body. Make a strong decision. If that's what you want to do, you can do it.
6 weeks,
but I don't. You know what? Let me be honest with you. You want me to be brutally honest on this film? And I've told this story on this thing. When I was 16 years old, I went to West Virginia. I don't even know if my wife knows the story. So baby, please don't get mad at me. When I was 16 years old, I went to West Virginia, met a girl. We, I was down there all summer. We did what teenagers did. Got home, went back to school. I think I was a sophomore in high school, I think, when I was going back to school. Got a letter in the mail. I'm thinking it's just a girl sending me a letter. I read the letter. The whole letter is spelling out how she got pregnant and her mother didn't want her to have a baby, and her mother took her to have an abortion. My mother was furious because another mother made a decision without involving her. Never called my mother to say anything, never said anything to my mother. I'm talking about the idea that it's her uterus. My mother was mad that another mother made a decision for her daughter to do something when her son was involved and never informed the son. Me, I was very happy. I was 16 years old. I didn't want no kid. Skip ahead to now I'm 52. There's not a week goes by I don't think about where that kid could be right now. So God bless the people who are saying that it shouldn't be that easy for you to just get pregnant and saddle up and say, you know what, it's going to be too inconvenient, it's going to be too much of a hassle, I'm just going to get rid of it. That's a human life form that you're killing. And so now let's have that argument, but let's not have this roundabout argument about pro-choice and whose body it is, because whose body really it is, it's the baby's body. It's just inside of you. It's the baby's body. You're not doing anything to your body when you have an abortion as a woman. You're killing a baby. So let's have that discussion. Now, don't ask me where I stand on it, because I'm going to tell you where I stand on it. That's where I stand from personal history. That's where I stand. There's not a week goes by I don't think about, I have no kids now. I don't know if God's telling me, oh, you had your chance, homeboy. You know, so I don't know. But that's where I stand on that issue. I don't see that as two separate issues. I see that as a life and death issue. I actually see it as murder. And I'm against murder. So now, if you want to make an argument that it's a woman,
now, is that conservative or right wing?
That's conservative. That's conservative. That's biblical. That's godlike.
Oh, no.
We don't. I mean, I know you're
got a major preacher.
But you have people that go to prisons and advocate not to kill a man who's raped and pillaged 3 and 4 people and is on death row, and we'll stand outside and protest, no, don't kill this man, it's heinous to kill this man, and then you'll march at the same time, you'll wake up the next day and go pray and march at a march so you can kill babies in the womb. That's what's madness. That's when God is going to judge us, because that baby has no voice, that baby has nothing to say in defense of itself, to say why it should live. And the people that are pro-life are speaking up for the baby. Now, if you want to have a different argument about the woman's opportunity to choose and do what she wants to, that's a totally separate side issue, but that's not the basis of the argument.
You see Shelley Wynter. This is Shelley Wynter show. You're here right now. Finally, I want 2 more questions. You've spoken to many GOP meetings across the state. What's your message and what's your goal talking to these folks?
My goal is to have competitive races. My goal is to get African Americans in the two. It's Sun Tzu's argument. Sun Tzu in The Art of War says, if you're a smaller army, if you go and attack from the same position, all one same army, you'll be decimated. My simple position is, if you go with the emotional argument that this side hates you and this side loves you, that emotional argument falls apart when you see the side you've been voting for has no love for you either. So if you go with the argument that both sides are just political parties in interests of themselves and interests of controlling the finances of the country, then the smart man stays in the middle, asks this side what it's going to do for me, asks this side what it's going to do for me, and then chooses accordingly depending on the election, depending on the vote. Malcolm X famously said that African Americans can swing an election if they bandied and got themselves together. We tend to swing an election for one side every single time and get nothing from it. So my argument is, I want black people to look at the Republican Party as a viable choice for when you go vote. If you make that decision to vote for them, that's on you. But for me personally, I make that decision because when I look at the candidates and I look at the lineup and I look at the issues, I say, well, I'm on this side. And now you may look at it and say, well, you might do that every election, Maynard. You may look on this side and say, well, I'm on this side. But at a certain point, if you keep going on this side and you're not getting anything from it except a return visit every 4 or 2 years, depending on when the election is at your church, then at a certain point you've got to say, you know what, I'm going to sit this one out, one, which is what the walk-away movement is all about, or number 2, I'm going to go on this side, just if nothing else to show this side that I'm willing to go over here and vote for this side. And I want to shout this young man out. See this young man here, Chandler? I thought this was a restaurant. I didn't know he wasn't supposed to be there, so I apologize. This is Chandler. Chandler is on YouTube, on Twitter, got thousands of followers. Another young kid, CJ Pearson. Chandler's part of this whole new group of young people called free thinkers. They're not Democrats, they're not Republicans. Yeah. This is the future of what I want to see our country be. I want a bunch of kids who are going out there looking at a system and saying, how can I make this system work for me? They're free thinkers. They're thinking about the issues different and apart from how their grandparents saw it, how their parents see it, and that's what I'm trying to do. That's who I'm talking to. I can dispense with all you 60.
You're off the air on Friday. Where do you go from here? Where's Shelley Wynter and the mystique you built up? The following
I got social media. I got a YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Shelley Wynter show on YouTube. Just subscribe. Just click subscribe. I've got a website, ShelleyWynter.com. I'll probably 9 times out of 10 had a conversation today. I'll be somewhere local. I'll be filling in and probably doing a weekend show. I just can't say definitively what's going on, but I know I'll be part of another radio station family here in the market. And I'll probably be announcing that. I'd love to have announced it here, but I'll probably be announcing that on Thursday. But I'll definitely be on radio in here in the city of Atlanta or in some capacity.
In the same capacity, same kind of show you were doing there?
Absolutely. That show works. Absolutely. I can't change and be, I'd love to be able to say I'm a Democrat all of a sudden because the 1380's got a listing for a job on-air host listed right now on Indeed.com. So I'd like to be able to go to call Joyce Littell and say, hey, I'm a Democrat now. Can I come on 1380? But that's not going to happen. No, I am who I am. So I'll be still doing the same talk, the same stuff. I want to leave a legacy. My legacy is when I die, I want people to come to my funeral and say, and they're standing outside, they're drinking a beer, or they're taking shots of tequila, or they're smoking a blunt, or whatever they're doing, and I want them standing outside, and want to say, man, until I heard Shelley Wynter, I never really thought about that. And that would be, I can go and burn me, cremate me, whatever you want. That's all I want. I just want to be able to see the same onion and look at it differently because Shelley Wynter led them down a road where they were able to see something differently. That's all I want.
Shelley, thank you so much. Shelley Wynter.